Okay, so obviously, just rolling training camp. We're kind of in dog days here, just every day grinding it out. Certainly, we'll expand on some of the stuff we did yesterday, kind of building more situational awareness. So a little bit, if you watched, the third down stuff was shorter, kind of distances, kind of more specific. Usually those plays are quicker type of plays, kind of more specific type of routes, coverages, things like that. We'll kind of lengthen some of the third down situations we have today. So you'll see some really difficult ones, things that come up during the game, longer yardage. And also going to try to mix in a little bit more of a move the field mentality where now we're also playing not only the down and distance situations, but the field position. There's a lot of teaching that goes into, what happens in certain field positions, whether the ball is on the negative side of the 50 or the plus side of the 50, what kind of plays you run there. There's some specific markers on the field that play calling philosophy changes. So we're going to try to just mix that in, to the players today and see how they respond without really kind of giving them a heads up. So just continually trying to just get closer and closer to playing the game of football. We have to break it down. We have to teach it in stages. So we're getting closer to doing that. And obviously, the preseason games will be coming up pretty quick. So we got to be ready to go when we get to that point. So we'll just kind of keep mixing it. The pace and the tempo and the change, the transition will all be the same as we work through practice. And hopefully just get another good day. Okay. What do we got?
When you say the play calling philosophy changes based on field position, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. A simple one is you'll watch a lot of teams in certain situations, let's say, around midfield or as it creeps towards the red area where as the field starts to condense or maybe there's a change in shift in philosophy on the defensive side from coverage where offenses can be a little bit more aggressive. They'll try to get the ball downfield a little bit more in those situations. And offensive philosophy might be to move the pocket. It might be a gadget situation where they feel like they can kind of capitalize on maybe an over-aggressive defense. You're kind of on the edge of field goal range as you start to, either get to the 50 or across the 50. So you're talking about 15 yards of space. That's a pretty, critical territory to battle over from that situation. And then, once you kind of get to that field goal range, now you're kind of in a different mode from that standpoint. Maybe it's another shortening of the field kind of conversation and or at some point then working towards the red area. Kind of there's different field goal percentage markers along the field that can change some play calling in. But when you get to the 50, for example, that next 15 yards is kind of a critical situation because you're talking about points.
Hi guys, are they close? How close are they?
Yeah.
Did they come into camp
so,
not in shape or what?
You know what? All those guys that are on all of those, different labels that we are able to use are working really hard. You'll see them out there. They're working with the training staff, the strength staff, whether it's a situation that there was either something that they're working through from an injury standpoint or even just overall we want them to develop a little bit more from any aspect of the physical part of the game to be ready to go to practice and go out there. We're just trying to do everything right by the player so they can go out and compete at a high level. Certainly, we're trying to get everybody out there as fast as we can every single day. But, we also understand this is kind of a long haul and we don't want to rush something into a situation where somebody may not be ready to go, especially in the contact phase that we're in. It's a little bit different in the spring. You can kind of get everybody out there and protect them a little bit because there is not that contact element. But once we put the pads on, you just have to really do a good job of being conscious of the players from that standpoint so they're not in a situation where, they may take a shot or a hit or, again, there's a lot of collisions out there that are unintentional sometimes, and you're trying to protect those as much as possible till they're ready to go.
To sort of follow up on that, I saw something where the NFL had distributed stats about injuries early in camp.
Yeah.
How much of that is a concern just being extra?
It's really good. They do that every year. They kind of talk about the first 15 days of camp, and they also talk about the spring. They talk about the season, where injury rates are up and where they increase. And I think those are all just great tools for us to understand, along with the sports science stuff that we do and workloads and heart rate and, GPS tracking, things like that to kind of always monitor, where those players are, younger players, older players, injury history players, new to the program players. We try to dive into all of that to make sure that we're kind of giving very specific individualized performance plans for every single player. You can't just lump everybody in there together. You really want to be specific with all those. So all that data really helps us.
I got a two-parter here on Miles Kilgrew. Made a position switch for you last year. Just curious how that year of progress has gone from there. And then two, he played more special team snaps for you than anybody last year. Just the value of a guy that maybe isn't contributing on offense or defense, but can play all those different phases.
Yeah, I mean, obviously critical from a special teams standpoint. One of the guys that's out there in all four phases, which is, critical for us as a team to have those guys that every single week. That's a huge phase of the game. They dive into the game plans. They understand it. They help some of the teammates that, are maybe on one or two phases. They're kind of the glue that pulls all of those different special teams together. The guys that are your core special teams guys. It's such a huge value to the team. With Miles in general, I mean, such a great person, such a great guy, studies, learns, works. We made the position switch last year. It's really kind of the way we teach in the conceptual manner. It's not really that much or that far off from the safety position that he played. It's maybe a couple different alignments, but other than that, there's a lot of same carryover back and forth. You can take a player from a safety position and package him into a linebacker position, and it's all really the same based on how much you kind of give them from that standpoint, because there's a lot of crossover. I would say just in general, very much so for Miles, just like the rest of the guys on defense, just having that one more spring in the meeting rooms, going through the installation, going through the concepts, and kind of learning it for the second time. I think he's really made some huge strides for us on the defensive side of the ball through camp. He's made a lot of plays out there. He's gotten the ball out a couple times. Like, he's forced a couple of different turnover situations or ball disruption situations. So really pleased with his work ethic right now and what he's trying to do in his growth. One of the things for the guys that are 4 core special teams guys, they're at the game, so they have to have a role, and we only have so many guys that are active, and you may not be out there with the starting group, but there might be a package that you're going to play in, or, if an injury situation comes up or something comes up, you have to be ready to go. So certainly from that standpoint, that's a big job. That's a very important job for us at the team.
Yeah, Coach, Graham Glasgow was saying yesterday that he's been watching videos of T.J. Lang at right guard just to help him in that position switch. How common is that for players to watch other guys? And what's the value of that?
Yeah, I think it's actually really common, and it's not only common. What's great for Graham with TJ is obviously we have a lot of film in-house as far as the stuff that he did for us here, but I think a lot of players watch other players in the league too. There might be an offensive lineman, a tackle, a center that has a similar maybe play style or a similar, movement skill set that you're going to try to put your game after. I think, with TJ, when he was here, obviously just a great player, a great leader for us, someone that the offensive line followed every single day. So very natural, easy to kind of go back and study him and see how he played at such a high level every single game, and then through practice and everything that he did. So that's a great person for us to go back and study. But we'll do that with a lot of different players through the course of the league. And sometimes we'll also study maybe offensive linemen, let's say, that have played against defensive linemen that we're going to see that year and did a good job against them. Like, why did they do a good job? How did that apply? It may not necessarily fit the skill set for the individual player that's studying it, but maybe something that he does, works for us. So we're always trying to get an edge from that standpoint through that film study.
Matt, Kenny Galladay's entering his 3rd season. From your experience, being around young receivers, scheming against them, where do you guys typically take the biggest jump, kind of in that year 3 for young receivers?
Yeah, good question. I think for Kenny, last year was a real interesting year for him. I thought where we were able to do a couple different things with him, move him around and kind of get him out of the box, sort of say, as far as things that he had done in the past. And I think he really grasped that concept really well. Was really, I think, difficult for other teams to defend in that standpoint and, put a lot of pressure on the defense. I think, again, you just continually, one of the reasons we did that obviously is coming out of the first year, he's not unknown anymore. People are going to be looking for him. So obviously at that point for us, it was, how do we just get him in good positions? We're kind of running out of different ways to do that. So it becomes even more difficult as you go forward. I think defenses are definitely going to be dialed into where he's at, what he's doing, what he does well. So this will be a hard year where he's going to see coverages, I think, that he hasn't seen before. And that'll be a big challenge for him from that standpoint.
Hey, Coach, usually when you put a new offense in, a lot of mental errors, misalignment problems, whatever, but it seems like this camp has been pretty smooth. You don't really see a lot of that. Are you more surprised that it's been pretty much a smooth transition?
Yeah. I think they've done, you're actually right. I would say, defense and offense, there's just little details in there with some of the alignment stuff. I would say they did a really good job at the spring of really, from a fundamental standpoint, making sure everybody got the alignments right. Because again, if you can't get lined up right, then the play doesn't look right, and the timing of it is all messed up from that standpoint. So they've done a good job with it. There's little things here and there that we pick up on tape that maybe a yard off or a yard not exactly where it should be, or a split, or a depth of a certain stagger of a stance, or whatever it is that we're correcting. But overall, I think they've done a real good job with the details of picking that up. That's probably a pretty good observation there. Yep.
Last question.
Yeah, we have one over here.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and-
Can you explain the difference of the challenge of you as a head coach having your defensive system with Pasqualoni continue this year, and then having a changeover on the offense from Jim Bob to Bevel, and how the differences are between offense and defense?
I think, you know what, obviously, you know, second year growth for us on the defense is good, and Coach B running the defense obviously has, you know, the ideas and the thoughts and kind of some of the things that, you know, that we like to run from a defensive philosophy, but certainly in some situations he has a better feel or comfort for plays that he likes versus things that, you know, maybe in the past that I've called differently. It's all good. You know, when we get into game plan modes from that standpoint, we're really on the same page. So I think that's interesting from that aspect of it. I would say with Bev on the offensive side of the ball, while they're installing, I think it's really great to see. And Bono too, you know, with Bev and Bono and Coach P, kind of the three of them working together to, and then Coach P obviously being here last year and going through it to kind of help those guys along with, hey, no, we're going to work on this during this period, or this is what this drill looks like, or this is how we're going to do this. And we go back through the tape from last year so that we kind of get the structure set up. So it is kind of still new from that whole aspect for, you know, 2/3 of the team of what it should look like from the coordinator standpoint. So just that's part of, you know, the spring and part of training camp is just getting everybody on the same page with that. So it's been an interesting dynamic from that standpoint.
Progress you've seen thus far?
I mean, yeah, we're always happy, right? But, you know, it always can be better.
I see the 1934 in your hand. I know you're obviously a fan of the history of the game. I don't know if that's just part of the NFL 100 or if there's something you're talking about with the guys about, you know, the history of the franchise.
Yeah, great observation. All of it, you know, I think obviously it's going to be a huge, really special year for the NFL. You know, I think some of the things that we've seen from the different meetings that we've been at with the league and some of the imagery from the game and the history of it and the teams from their inception and when they started, I think it's really, really cool. I think it's going to be exciting for the fans. I think it's great for us. I love, you know, the look. I love, you know, the just all of it from going back to the very start and where we began here in Detroit. And, you know, I love that. So pretty cool.